Welcome. In this lesson, we'll look at how we interact with a large language model. The agenda is going to be as follows. So we will use a console from one of the LLM providers, and we will interact with a large language model through the console. We will also be looking at concepts such as system prompt, token usage, temperature, and few-shot prompting. Right, so with that, let's jump into Mistral AI. Okay, so Mistral AI is one of the providers of large language models, and they are a company based out of France, and they've been doing some really wonderful job with open weights model. They're kind of one of my favorite AI companies right now. So Mistral, on this site, you can go and try their API. Good thing about Mistral is that using their API, it doesn't require you to provide them with a credit card, right? So you can go and start playing around with them straight away. So if you click try the API, it will take you to console.mistral.ai. And inside of console, you are in a page called La Platform, which is French for the platform. And inside here, you want to go into create an agent. We are not creating an agent just yet, but this is just how Mistral have called this feature inside of their product. When you click on this, you will get to what is called a playground or a console, right? And this is a UI with which you will come and test out some of these large language models. This is different from the ChatGPT UI, the familiar text box chatbot UI that you might have used in the past, because this is designed for developers, not for end users, right? You could also use a platform from another provider like OpenAI. This is OpenAI's platform. You can see a similar looking interface. You can type in messages here, and then you will get a response from an AI. You can select an AI model here, and there are other options as well. So let's jump back to Mistral's platform, and we will see how we can tweak some of these parameters and what effect that has. Okay, so let's ask it a question here as well. So hi, we've selected Mistral Large 2.1, which is one of their best models, and there's the response, right? Now, there's also some other parameters here. So apart from the model which I can choose, I can also select what's called randomness or a temperature, right? And a good way to think about the temperature is the randomness of the model. Towards the left, lower values of temperature will give you less random or more deterministic responses. On the right, higher values of temperature will give you more and more random responses, right? So if you're doing things like creative things like writing a poem or an essay, then you might want this to be high. But if you're doing mission critical things and we want the model to be deterministic, then we want the temperature value to be low. Okay, and then there's also another field called system prompt. Okay, this is really important. So system prompt is the initial instructions to tell the model how does it need to behave. Okay, so let's do one example. We'll start by setting the temperature down to 0, which means really low randomness, and we will give it a system prompt like this. Okay, so you are a sentence autocomplete assistant, complete the user's sentences, right? That's our system prompt. That's how we have sort of primed our model. And our message is going to be, the best thing to do in Melbourne on a Saturday morning is, okay? So we're asking the AI to complete this sentence. Let's send it. Is to visit the Queen Victoria Market. It's a great place to enjoy local produce, source for unique items, and experience the city's vibrant market culture. Alternatively, you might also enjoy a stroll along the Yarra River or a brunch at one of Melbourne's many renowned cafes. Fantastic. I love the response. Let's ask it to come up with the response again, right? With the settings of temperature set to 0, and we'll try to reproduce this. To visit the Queen Victoria Market. So we can see exact same response. Or the Yarra River or the renowned cafes, right? Let's ask it again. Queen Victoria Market, Yarra River, or renowned cafes. One more time for completeness. Again, Queen Victoria Market, Yarra River, and renowned cafes, right? Now what we're going to do is switch this temperature all the way to the right to 1 to bring in maximum randomness. Okay. Now with that, let's try to generate this output again. Refresh is, so to visit the Queen Victoria Market, it's a great place, da 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 da, Yarra River and brunch. It's the same response as before. Let's try that one more time. Here, to visit the Queen Victoria Market, this is same, but all the other things are slightly different, right? So cozy cafes, vibrant street, Yarra River is also mentioned, but the wording is slightly different, okay? Retry that again. So this time it didn't start with to visit, it started at the beginning of the sentence, and it told us about the CBD, laneways, and so on. One more time for completeness. Here, again, different responses. So that was an example of how setting the temperature to 0 or 1 gives you deterministic responses for 0 and random varied responses if you set it to 1. Okay, so that's the temperature. And if you go to OpenAI, you can also find the same control here, but OpenAI goes all the way from 0 to 2. But the idea is the same. Lower, deterministic, higher, more creative. OpenAI also exposes more controls. Tokens is amount of, like, how long of output do you want? You can ask it to not generate beyond a maximum number of tokens. There's also others like top P. Top P serves a similar purpose to temperature. In fact, OpenAI asks developers to either use top P or the temperature, not both. And frequency and presence penalty also do with sampling the output inside of the model. They deal with how does the model reward when the same token is produced, right? So it's all about frequency and presence of tokens. We won't go into much depth into these, but you can look at this yourself as well. Those are not exposed by Mistral's platform. They have only exposed temperature in their APIs. But what Mistral also allows you to do is add demonstrations or few-shot prompts. Few-shot prompting is a technique of teaching the large language model your preference by giving it sample question-answer pairs. Okay? So for the second test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the system instruction and give it a difference in system instruction, set the temperature to 0. This time the instruction will be, you are, if I can type, sentiment analysis assistant. Your goal is to detect the user's sentiment in their message, right? Simple, straightforward. And let's see what it does. So we'll ask it, where is the best cafe around me? So based on your message, I detect a neutral or positive sentiment. So yes, it has tried to detect the sentiment, but it's very wordy, right? I don't like how wordy it is. I want it to give me shorter responses. Okay, so this time let's ask it for short responses. Okay, we'll change the system instruction to come up with a short response and ask it again. So this time it's definitely shorter, but again, it's very wordy. Your sentiment appears to be neutral or informational. Now, what if we wanted to teach the AI by showing it some examples of what I want my output to be like? That's what few-shot prompting is. That's what demonstrations are. Let's add a demonstration. Okay, so we have to show the model some sample of input and output. From that, the model will learn how it is supposed to respond, right? So we'll say, if the question is, where's the best cafe around me? Then what I'll say is sentiment is exploration. Okay, and then I'll give one more. This one will be, what time is the last train from Flinders Street station? Okay, and the output will be sentiment inquiry about trains. Okay, those are the two examples that I just gave the model. Now let's try asking it the question. Okay, so my question is going to be, and this time remember that I have given some few short prompts as well. So my question is going to be, When is Australia Day? If I can, oops. Okay, when is Australia Day? Send. Neutral, informational, right? So these are not wordy anymore. It has just given me a word or a couple of words for my sentiment. In fact, if I go and change this to one word in the example, let's see what that does. Best coffee in CBD. Sentiment, positive, right? One more time, I'm tired. I need a vacation. Sentiment, exhaustion, desire for a break, right? So you saw that by using few short prompts, we were able to control the output of the LLM. If you give it more examples, it'll follow the examples even more closer, but we already got it working to a reasonable degree. So those were few short prompting, okay? We'll get rid of these. And finally, one thing that I haven't talked about is tokens, right? So when you're using these foundation models, most of the time you're getting billed based on your usage, based on how many tokens are you sending and receiving back from the model, right? Now tokens are basically fragments of your input, and each model tokenizes differently, so there's no way to convert your input to tokens, but usually it's a good rule of thumb, around 2-ish tokens per word. So let's ask it a sample question. What is your favorite color? This time it's not about temperature or the system prompt. In fact, we'll get rid of everything and we'll just go back to the default values. I think it was around 0.7. And let's ask it this question: favorite way to spend a Friday? Excuse my cases. And here we can see that it has come up with a response, but when it is done, it also says how many tokens it used, right? So the conversation tokens were 365. That's taking the sum of the questions token. That's your input token, because this is the input you're giving to the LLM. If you had a system prompt, then obviously this system prompt is also going to be tokenized and included in your input token, and so will the few short prompts. So everything you write in system prompt or the few short prompts, they're included in your input prompt, right? And whatever the LLM spits out, that's your output prompt. Usually output prompts are, output tokens. Usually output tokens are billed slightly higher than the input tokens. Let's look at their pricing. And we'll do Mistral Cloud because we're using the version that they are hosting, and this is how it's built. So let's go to the model that we were using. So Mistral Large, this one will cost us $2 per a million tokens, and output is charged 3 times higher at $6 a million tokens, right? So that's how generally you're going to pay for using a large language model, based on how many tokens you're sending and receiving back from the model. And that's the end of this lesson. Thank you.